Hey, how are you doing? Good. Have you been practicing the advice of what we talked about last time? I see. Hmm. So you have been meditating and you feel like it isn't doing too much for you. Is that right? Okay. Yeah. There's no judgment at all, and we can talk about this. So, do you want to tell me a little bit about how you're feeling? About working on your self-destructive behavior and any obstacles you have came up to, and how you've been feeling so far about it. Yeah, you can tell me anything. I'm here for you. Yeah, go ahead. I see. There's a lot of guilt and self-blame, and you've been beating yourself up quite a bit, haven't you? Yeah, I understand. And a lot of tension. Yes. So we can talk about this a little bit. So whenever we work on our mental health, you can think about it as if you're going to a gym to work on your body. And we can call this gym the psychic gym. Yes. When you're working on being mindful, when you're overcoming your self-destructive behaviors, it is like going to a gym for your brain. And when, let's say, if we have never worked out, and we go to a gym and we work on our muscles, and we come back to our home, and the second day when we wake up, we're not gonna feel like, wow, my whole body changed, and I don't have any fats on me anymore, and I look like a different person. You wouldn't feel like that, right? And that's because one day it's not gonna change it, and it's a very gradual process, and all it takes is repetition and time. So you just need to be patient with yourself and keep going to this psychic gym, which means keep meditating, keep being mindful, and keep observing your emotions without judging them, not labeling certain emotions as bad and certain emotions as good, and not beat yourself up for these, because we're all humans and this is a process. And you need to treat yourself very gently with compassion, because during this process you're going to be facing a lot of fear, shame, guilt, anger, all those emotions that are hard to process, and you should be proud of yourself for making this step. And just remember, if you slip up once, it doesn't mean you are a loser and you have no self-control and you're just never gonna succeed. It doesn't mean any of that. It simply means that you slip up once and you gotta reflect and see how you can do better next time. Whenever you make a decision, whenever you do any habit, any behavior, you will form a new neural pathway in your brain. And so let's say you meditated for 5 days, then you have made that same pathway in your brain for 5 times. And those pathways are not disappearing. They're always gonna be there. And the more you repeat that action, the more this pathway gets strengthened, and the more it gets buried into your automatic self. So when you first practice a habit, it's gonna be a little bit difficult because it's not part of your natural self. You gotta train your brain like going to a gym, and you gotta keep doing it. And the more you do it, the more you're gonna be built, right? And then in no time, it will become such a natural thing for you that you don't need to think about it. You just do it. Like when you ride a bike, at first you're gonna work hard on it, but once you have acquired this skill, you don't need to think about it when you ride a bicycle anymore, because you already know how to do it, and you just get on the bike and you start riding it. That's because this thing has become part of your automatic self, and that part is in our unconscious, and you don't need to consciously be thinking about it or using any willpower to make yourself do it. So that's our goal, is to keep repeating those good habits until it become very natural for you, and then it won't be hard to do at that point, if that makes any sense. So yeah, basically being mindful is about practicing an emotional detachment. Observe it with compassion and curiosity. Sit with your emotions when they submerge. Do not suppress or judge it, or distract yourself from not confronting it. Whenever any emotion occur, any thoughts occur, you just need to sit with it and accept it as it is, and it will subside naturally. It's like an ocean wave. It's gonna come and go all on its own, without any resistance, without any judgment. It's just part of the natural process. Just think about an ocean wave. It comes and it goes. So will your thoughts and your emotion. Because none of them are gonna last forever. They're all gonna have a phase. They're all gonna last for a while, and then a new thought will emerge, a new emotion will emerge. So yeah, when we suppress uncomfortable emotion, we're only gonna accumulate more of it, and it gets so overwhelming, and it makes us feel so guilty and so ashamed, and so on, and we feel so much tension that we feel like we have nothing to turn to except being self-destructive. So being mindful and practicing meditation and practicing sit with your emotions and facing your fear, these are all healthy ways of coping with ourselves and undoing the self-destructive behaviors. So if you like, a tip I have for you is you can make a mood log. So a mood log is you can have 5 columns, and this is from the book called Rewire. In the first column, it can be date and time. The second column, it can be mood, anxiety change, and the third column can be externals, which are who, what, where, other unusual circumstances. The fourth column can be internals, which are thoughts, fantasies, memories. The fifth column can be coping strategies, which can be alter, avoid, accept. So if you feel anything positive or negative, you can put them all in these columns, and with a little bit of putting data into these columns about yourself, you will start to notice what triggers you into feeling negative, what triggers you into feeling happy, and how do you cope with them, whether it's healthy or unhealthy. And after you come up with certain association and trends, you can make yourself avoid the negative triggers. You can make yourself to change a different coping strategy, where you can make yourself do more things that trigger happy emotions and change things that trigger negative emotions, and so on. And also, what I want you to know is that I want to quote from the book Rewire on this. If you really just don't believe you can do better, simply go through the motions. AA says, fake it till you make it. Psychologists say that behavioral rehearsal is very effective. Athletes know you have to show up for practice. Eventually, the program starts to get into you. Now, there's research evidence on how this works. If you pretend to be a kind person, you will do kind things, which will make you feel good about yourself, which will make you want to do more kind things. If you pretend to be courageous, friendly, in control, the same kind of virtuous circle develops. And doing any one of these things once makes it easier to do next time, because that's how the brain works. Faking it and feeling its effects will gradually change your self-image and your assumptive world. Work on gradual acceptance of the idea that you do have an unconscious that makes most of your decisions for you, and of the fact that this unconscious contains some feelings and desires you don't want to accept. Don't judge yourself on your feelings, but on how you're handling them. Remember that guilt, shame, fear, and anger are important messages from your unconscious. There's a biological reason why they're unpleasant. They're meant to call our attention to something going wrong. Don't try to stifle them, but figure out what they mean. if they come from the past but you apply them to present situations. Start to let them go. If they're about your present behavior, pay attention. It's not always easy to interpret them because we have so many layers in our minds, but mindfulness practice will help you decipher the message. It's likely that your shame about your self-destructive behaviors has made you guarded and dishonest around others. You need to practice intimacy skills, which can be learned, just like self-control skills. You need to learn to share your feelings with people you can trust. In doing so, you will feel loving and lovable again. These are uniquely stressful times. Contemporary life has almost destroyed our sense of community. It's an age of mass culture and little personal connectedness, which has robbed life of much its meaning. We can feel driven to compete against the world instead of just a few people. Ironically, admitting that you have a problem and asking for help is one of the best ways to regain a sense of belonging to something larger than yourself. And I think that is pretty good information. Do you feel like it's helping you? Yes. About feeling guilty and keep beating yourself up. This is something from Rewire that I think will help you. Emotional acceptance is vital for correcting our assumptive words and improving our relationships. It simply means getting used to the fact that you have feelings that are ugly, nasty, and unworthy of who you want to be. But anger, fear, jealousy, lust, greed, and other desires we'd prefer not to recognize are hardwired into our brains. It's much healthier for us to accept these feelings and choose not to act on them than to repress them so that we're unaware of them. Habitual use of repression freezes us into rigid, fearful, dishonest personality styles that are hard to love and that lead to trouble. I think it takes a great deal more character to accept our feelings and deliberately control our actions than to pretend we don't feel baser emotions. If we can accept our feelings, we don't have to distort our world through the use of psychological defenses. If we can achieve greater emotional acceptance, we'll have less of a problem with unconscious guilt and shame, two of the prime motivators behind self-destructive behavior. When we believe that our thoughts or feelings are unacceptable, we can suppress awareness of them, yet still feel guilty about them. Unconscious guilt and shame lead to self-hate, a surefire reason for punishing ourselves by denying ourselves success, retreating into drug or alcohol, taking it out on our loved one, or flirting with danger. So there is hope for this because, like I said, repeating and keep practicing mindfulness will help you build new neural pathways in your brain to cope with these situations that when you're stressed or tired and vulnerable. And also, being mindful makes you practice emotional acceptance, which is good because you're not suppressing those uncomfortable emotions. You're learning to accept yourself, accept that these are just emotions. They don't define you, and it's normal to feel them. You don't have to act on them in a negative way. And I think you will do great. And yeah, well, I can't wait to see you in our future sessions. Well, keep it up, alright? Remember, don't to beat yourself up when you sleep. If you sleep once, it doesn't mean it's over. It doesn't mean you're a loser or you will never succeed. It simply means you're being a human. You sleep up once, and you can do better next time if you keep practice mindfulness. If you keep going to that psychic gym, your brain will get better at it. And I believe in you, and I'm so proud of you. Alright, you take care too. See you.